Right now, you are completely certain about something that never happened. You don't know which memory it is. You can't feel the difference between the ones that are real and the ones your brain quietly invented. But the research is clear, and the conclusion is stranger than you're ready for. A significant portion of what you remember about your own life is fiction. Your mind wrote after the fact. Not hallucination, not delusion, just ordinary human memory, doing exactly what it was designed to do. And what it was designed to do has almost nothing to do with accuracy. Think about the last time you described a memory to someone. A childhood moment, a conversation. The day something important happened, you told it with confidence. You felt the texture of it. The details were right there. But here's what neuroscience has spent the last 4 decades quietly uncovering. The act of remembering is not retrieval. It's reconstruction. Every single time you access a memory, your brain rebuilds it from scratch, using whatever pieces it can find, fills in the gaps with logic and expectation, and then saves that reconstructed version back over the original. The memory you have of an event right now is not the memory you had of it 10 years ago. It's a copy of a copy of a copy, and every generation of copying introduced new errors. The original is gone. Elizabeth Loftus has spent her career demonstrating exactly how easy it is to rewrite what someone remembers. In one of her most famous experiments, she showed participants footage of a car accident and then asked them a simple question. How fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? The word smashed. That single word caused people to remember the crash as faster, more violent, and more destructive than it actually was. When the same people were asked later whether there had been broken glass at the scene, more of the smashed group said yes. There was no broken glass. The question itself had planted a memory that felt completely real to the people who now carried it. She didn't stop there. In later studies, Loftus showed that with the right suggestion at the right moment, you can implant an entirely false childhood memory into a person's mind. Not just a detail, an entire event. Being lost in a shopping mall, spilling a punch bowl at a wedding, having your hand held by a stranger who smelled like something specific. Give people a few confirming nudges over a series of sessions, and many of them begin to remember the event vividly. They add new details the researcher never suggested. They feel the emotion of it. They defend the memory if you push back. They are not lying. That's the part that matters. They genuinely remember something that never happened. Your brain is not a camera. This is the first thing you need to understand. A camera records what's there. Your brain records what it expects to be there, what it needs to be there, and what it's been told is there. The hippocampus, which consolidates your memories during sleep and retrieval, is not an archive. It's an editor. It keeps what seems important. It compresses what seems repetitive. It invents what seems missing. And it does all of this without telling you. Daniel Kahneman, the psychologist whose work reshaped how we understand human thinking, described the mind as 2 separate systems running simultaneously: the fast, automatic narrative-building system and the slow, deliberate, analytical system. The fast system is the one generating your memories in real time. It is optimized for speed and coherence, not for truth. It would rather give you a wrong answer quickly than a correct answer slowly. And when it gives you that wrong answer, it feels completely right. The emotional signature of a false memory and the emotional signature of a true one are identical from the inside. You cannot tell them apart. No one can. This isn't a bug. That's the thing. Your memory works this way for a reason, and that reason goes back a very long time. For most of human existence, perfect recall was not a survival advantage. What mattered was pattern recognition. What mattered was the ability to compress 1,000 individual encounters with a predator into one general rule: that animal kills. Storing every specific instance of danger was less useful than storing the category of danger. Your ancestors' brains were not optimizing for accuracy. They were optimizing for speed, for generalization, for the kind of approximate knowledge that lets you respond before you've had time to think. The brain that stopped to remember the precise details of the last lion attack was slower than the brain that just ran. You inherited that brain. Frederic Bartlett understood this nearly a century ago. In the 1930s, he ran a series of experiments asking British university students to read and then recall a Native American folk story called The War of the Ghosts. The story had unusual logic, unfamiliar structure, culturally specific references that didn't map onto the students' existing mental frameworks. When they recalled it, something fascinating happened. They didn't remember what was actually there. They remembered a version of the story that had been unconsciously reshaped to match what they expected a story to look like. Unusual details were dropped. Familiar ones were added. The emotional arc was smoothed out. Each time a student recalled it again, the story drifted further from the original and closer to something ordinary. They weren't distorting it on purpose. Their brains were doing what brains do, fitting new information into existing structure. Bartlett called it the schema, the mental framework your brain imposes on everything you experience. You don't store raw experience. You store experience filtered through what you already believe, expect, and need to be true. Which means your memory of your own life is partly a story you've been telling yourself for so long, you've forgotten you wrote it. This has consequences you can feel right now, today, without running a single experiment. Think about a disagreement you've had with someone close to you, a misremembered conversation, a different version of what was said. You were sure you were right. They were sure they were right. And neither of you was lying. You had each reconstructed the event using your own schema, your own emotional context, your own narrative need. What you needed the conversation to mean shaped what you remembered the conversation to say. The memory wasn't retrieved. It was composed, and the composer had an agenda. Your brain's agenda is not always your own best interest. Sometimes it's self-protection. Sometimes it's consistency. Research on what psychologists call the self-serving bias shows that people systematically misremember their own past behavior in ways that make them look better. You remember warning a friend more clearly than you actually did. You remember agreeing with a correct prediction after the outcome was already known. You remember your past opinions shifting toward your current ones even when they didn't. Your memory is not a witness, it's a defense attorney, and it is very good at its job. Here's the part that changes something when you sit with it long enough. Every story you tell about yourself, about where you came from, about what shaped you, about what you've been through, is a constructed narrative. Not a lie, but not an archive either. The you that you remember being at 7 years old is a character your current brain built from fragments, inference, and need. The version of events you carry from your most painful moments has been edited by every year that followed. The memory that still hurts is not the original experience. It's the most recent reconstruction of it, shaped by who you are now, which means something unexpected. The story is not fixed. The memory is not sealed. Because reconstruction is not storage. Every time you revisit a painful memory under the right conditions, you have a small window to reshape it. Not to falsify it, but to hold it differently. This is part of why certain therapeutic approaches work. Not because they dig up the original and fix it, but because they understand that the original is already gone, and what remains is something that can be met differently, integrated differently, carried with less weight. You are not remembering your life. You are authoring it, continuously, in real time, from a position of incomplete information, emotional need, and inherited cognitive shortcuts that were never designed for the task of being you in the 21st century. Tonight, before you sleep, your brain will consolidate today's experiences. It will keep some details, drop others, weave the whole thing into the ongoing story it's been writing since you were born. You'll wake up tomorrow with memories of today, and some of them will already be fiction.